But let's continue on with our next headliner topic on this edition of the Rock News Roundup podcast. And that is, are Smashing Pumpkins the most misunderstood band in the history of rock and roll? Well, Billy Corgan seems to think so. And Billy Corgan. I love the guy, but sometimes he just says the dumbest things, especially when he's being interviewed by people. And well, he went on Joe Rogan recently, which is already stupid. He went on the Joe Rogan podcast and said, and this is a quote, that Smashing Pumpkins are one of the most misunderstood bands in the history of rock and roll. He was kind of talking about how Nickelback and Creed are kind of liked now. I talked about them on the last episode of the podcast, is that, everybody, well, not everybody hated them when they first hit the scene in the early 2000s and the late 90s, but like they weren't given a lot of a chance, and a lot of people really ragged on them for a lot of years. But that sentiment has kind of shifted over the last few years, where now people are like, hey, Creed and Nickelback, they got some good tunes. In fact, I listed them on a couple of my tracks of the week here on the podcast last week. So even I have softened on Creed and Nickelback over the years. And he thinks that, Billy Corgan thinks that the Smashing Pumpkins are kind of in the same position as those bands, is that they're kind of misunderstood and they're really not given the appreciation, or maybe Billy isn't given the appreciation that he's looking for, that he feels that other bands have been getting over the last, bunch of years. Bands that people previously were really negative about are now all of a sudden very positive about and going to see their shows and giving them a lot of big business, and really they're doing well, running off of that nostalgia. So he thinks that Smashing Pumpkins, eventually the time will tell the tale of the Smashing Pumpkins. And he said that he thinks that part of the reason why the Smashing Pumpkins are misunderstood, in his view, is that he had a really antagonistic relationship with the media in the 1990s that led to a kind of a negative view of him in the band, or like some sort of misunderstood view of the band. And I kind of understand that, because Billy Corgan didn't really try to impress anybody back in the 90s. He was very, very, very much just in his own world, and he didn't really care whether people liked him or not, or whether the Smashing Pumpkins appealed to the masses as much as other bands at the time. So he, in his view, thinks that they are very misunderstood. And I'm just thinking about Billy Corgan. I'm thinking, why is he always going on about this stuff? Smashing Pumpkins are still a very, very big rock band. They're still a very, very prominent name in the world of rock music, and most of the majority, or most of the original lineup has come back, except for Darcy. Jimmy Chamberlin's in the band. James Iha is in the band. They have, everybody that they want to be in the band is in the band. They've had their ups and downs over the years. Don't get me wrong. There's been albums that have done better than others when it comes to Smashing Pumpkins and Billy Corgan's career in general. But Billy Corgan has sustained a career in the music industry, and as maybe he's not as relevant now as he used to be, but like as a mostly relevant artist for more than 30 years now. So I don't really know why he still has this kind of underdog attitude where he thinks that the Smashing Pumpkins, and I think he's not really so much about Smashing Pumpkins that he feels like he personally hasn't gotten his due and hasn't gotten his flowers when it comes to people like kneeling at the altar, bending the knee to the Smashing Pumpkins. Oh, Billy, you're so great. You're so great. He feels like he hasn't gotten enough of that over the years. And that's really disappointing, because I've been with Billy and the Smashing Pumpkins for many, many years. I've been with them through those ups and downs as a Smashing Pumpkins fan. I became a fan of them in the mid-90s, when Melancholy and Adore came out. Those were the records that really got me into the Smashing Pumpkins. Went back and listened to Gish and Siamese Dream and Pisces Iscariot. And then I kind of followed them from there through Zwan, which is a band that I really, really loved. I loved that Zwan record, Mary Star of the Sea, through his solo album, The Future Embrace, and then through when the Pumpkins got back together the first time with Zeitgeist, all the different lineup changes, all of it. And, I am still here as a Smashing Pumpkins fan. And I think a lot of us are still here from judging from the people I talk to on this channel. A lot of us are still here. A lot of Smashing Pumpkins fans are still massive fans. And I think he really undervalues us as fans when you think about all the records that we bought, all the stuff that we've done. We've been there all along with him. And I think he kind of forgets that we're out here. I bought Autumn. I didn't like that album at all, but I still bought that record. I still buy every Smashing Pumpkins album, at least on CD, and add it to my collection. So I think he really undervalues us Smashing Pumpkins fans. I think he doesn't think we're out there, but we are out there. And I think he's only really going by the mainstream and how he perceives everybody in the mainstream perceiving him. I think he's overthinking it a lot. And the problem is with Billy Corgan, and I don't really think this is the case for a lot of the bands of his era, is that the Smashing Pumpkins songs have not always been there over the years. And I've said this in every Smashing Pumpkins review and video that I've done here on the channel, is that not everything he does has to rock. Not everything has to sound like Cherub Rock or Bullet with Butterfly Wings or Zero or anything. I know that Billy Corgan is a very dynamic and very diverse songwriter. You listen to Melancholy or any of their albums, like he does so many different styles, and then from album to album, he never does anything twice. He never really repeats himself. But the thing is that the songs have to be good. And that has been the mostly inconsistent thing for him, at least for me as a fan over the years, even though I have bought every album, regardless of whether I think it's good or not. And when you think about it, back in 2022 and 2023, he released a 3-disc album. Like, it was the spiritual sequel to Melancholy and Infinite Sadness, the Autumn album, which had some of the worst songs that he's ever written. And then he's getting mad at us that we're like, you didn't like all 30 songs on this kind of bad album with lots of really, really cheesy synths. Like, what's wrong with you? Why didn't you like this? And that's just how it goes when the songs aren't good. And then Agori Mori May came out last year, which was a really, really good album. I thought that was really good. Obviously, it went back to more of that stereotypical Smashing Pumpkins rock sound that a lot of people wanted him to do. And I think it's like, because the fans get so excited when he puts out those kind of albums, it kind of validates his opinion that we're not listening to stuff when he doesn't do that, which I don't think is true at all. It's just like the songs have to be good. And I don't think that Billy Corgan as an artist has had the consistency of other bands and other artists of his era. Like, when I think about the Gallagher brothers and their solo stuff after Oasis, the songwriting has maintained its quality over the years. Noel Gallagher's current songs, the songs he's released as Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds over the last decade or so, I love those songs just as much as I love the Oasis songs, and just the caliber and the quality of the songs. That is what's there. I know some people might disagree with me, but Weezer is another band. I know there's been a lot of controversy about whether their newer songs are as good as their older songs, but I've always thought that Weezer still has a really, really great quality of songwriting. Rivers Cuomo is still a great songwriter, in my opinion, and that's reflected in most of what they've done over the last 10, 15 years as a band. And then you think about Foo Fighters, Dave Grohl. Of course, maybe things won't always live up to The Color and the Shape and Nothing Left to Lose in the debut and One by One and those kind of records. But I think Foo Fighters, for the most part, over the course of their career, have maintained a level of consistency and quality in their songwriting, at least in comparison to somebody like Billy Corgan. So I think a lot of the bands and a lot of artists of his heyday, of his era, of the 90s, have maintained a certain level of quality that Billy Corgan and the Smashing Pumpkins haven't over the last 20 years or so. So, and there's another thing too with Smashing Pumpkins is that, yeah, we have Jimmy and James back in the band, but a lot of people have always been hung up on, it's got to be the OG lineup of the Smashing Pumpkins. If Darcy isn't there, then it's not the Smashing Pumpkins. And that's not anything that I've ever really agreed with. I thought Darcy was great when she was in the band, but she's by no means an essential part of the Smashing Pumpkins going forward. They've done just fine without her. But a lot of fans seem to always get caught up and kind of hung up on, it's got to be those original 4 people. I don't really think the Smashing Pumpkins are one of those bands. They're not the Beatles where it's like, it's got to be those people. Billy Corgan is really, really the kind of the centerpiece of the Smashing Pumpkins. And then, he's had various lineup changes over the years. Like, I love the lineup that he had during the Oceania album. That was a great lineup with Mike Byrne on drums, Nicole Fiorentino, and then Jeff Schroeder, the 4 of them. That was like probably the best lineup of the band that we've had since the 90s. So it's like, I don't really think that Billy Corgan and the Smashing Pumpkins are misunderstood. It's just they're not as consistent. Billy Corgan is not as consistent as a songwriter, and people have been calling him out for it for many, many years. It's like, again, I'm a hardcore Smashing Pumpkins fan. There's people watching this video. We're all hardcore Smashing Pumpkins fans, but Billy Corgan hasn't always valued us as fans, and he just kind of expects us to go along with things, even if the quality of the songs isn't there. So it's like, it's I don't really understand it. We're in a time now where nostalgia is at an all-time high. Like, if people are coming back and saying, I love Creed and I love Nickelback, and they're saying that without any ounce of shame, which we should all have a little bit of shame if we say we like a Creed or Nickelback song. Like, I put a Nickelback song as one of my tracks of the week last week on the podcast. I'm turning into a Boston accent here on the podcast, but I felt a little bit dirty doing that. I'm like, is this going to compromise my integrity as a music fan and critic on YouTube? It could have destroyed the whole thing, guys, but I did it because I'm brave, right? because I'm like, I love this music. Leader of Men, Old Enough by Nickelback from the state. That's a killer record, man. You should fucking listen to it. Sorry for my language, but yeah, like if we can have nostalgia for Creed and Nickelback, then we can most definitely have nostalgia for the Smashing Pumpkins. Like we live in the age of nostalgia. There's nothing bigger right now than 90s nostalgia, and people love the Smashing Pumpkins. You know, you go on Spotify, you go on streaming services, they're still doing fine. You know, obviously people listening to a lot of the stuff from their golden age, but you know, Smashing Pumpkins are by no means a name that have gone into obscurity. So I just think it's a quality thing when it comes to Billy. And I really think that he should be getting off his soapbox. He should get that chip off his shoulder. He's been more successful in his career than most musicians could ever dream of. And now he's got that new podcast where he's not letting people talk. Like I was watching his podcast the other day that he was talking to Wolfgang Van Halen, and I don't think Wolfgang was able to get like a single word in edgewise while Billy Corgan was talking. Billy Corgan likes to hear himself talk, and this is coming. I love Billy Corgan. I'm a big fan. Billy, not that you ever watch this channel, but I love the Smashing Pumpkins. I love you, but I just really wish you just chill out a little bit, man. You got your wife, you got your kids, you got your Smashing Pumpkins, the band's back together, you got great people on stage with you. Just enjoy being the Smashing Pumpkins. You don't have to live up to everything from the past. Just write good songs. Even songs on the new album, Agori Mori May, some of the songs don't really rock in that traditional sense, but they're still great songs. Like Who Goes There? That's a great song on this new record. And so it doesn't always have to be rock turned up to 11 for us to love the Smashing Pumpkins. The music just has to be good. So are the Smashing Pumpkins the most misunderstood band in the history of rock and roll? Absolutely not. I think they're not the underdogs that they think they are. So Smashing Pumpkins, love you guys. Billy Corgan, I love you, but you're not misunderstood at all. You just got to write good songs. And when you do, we as fans respond. And I think that you should value us hardcore Smashing Pumpkins fans that have been there through every single record. I think you should value us a little bit more. I think you're misunderstanding us, and I think you're misunderstanding the audience that is out there for your music. We're out here, man. We just want some good songs. If you can give us good songs, that's what we want to hear. So, Billy Corgan, you're not misunderstood, and that is my final thought on that topic.